I come to the floor today to share a message from Iowa's heartland. As you know, millions of Americans in the middle of the country are experiencing catastrophic flooding. My home state of Iowa and our neighbors in Nebraska are particularly hard hit, and downriver of the Missouri and Mississippi, it'll affect others. I want to thank the Trump administration for its swift response on Saturday to approve the expedited request for a major disaster declaration made by Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds on Thursday evening. The flooding has caused tremendous damage, impacting more than 2/3 of Iowa's 99 counties. The federal disaster proclamation will trigger emergency assistance to 56 of those counties so far, and that would be the counties in blue on the map here. Governor Reynolds' team has been in trenches, working hand in hand with local officials and county emergency coordinators. They estimated damage so far across our entire state to be $1.6 billion. The damage is estimated for agriculture is $214 million, damages to homes $481 million, levee repair estimates $525 million. By all accounts and every possible metric, the damages and devastation are overwhelming. And yet, at the very same time, the legendary mythology of America's heartland and its people is rooted in truth. The road to recovery will be long, grueling, and at times gruesome. But I am confident that the grit and resilience of Iowans and their fellow Midwesterners will prevail. Over the last week, we've heard remarkable stories of neighbor helping neighbor and of neighbors helping total strangers, residents of all ages, and residents of differing abilities rubbed elbows to bag sand to save a water treatment facility in their small town. First responders and good Samaritans rescued people stranded in their homes. Farmers moved their neighbors' grain and livestock to higher ground. Volunteers rolled up their sleeves to serve hot meals and to deliver water. And generous Americans across our country opened their wallets to donate money, food, water, hygiene products, and medical supplies. Iowa farmers, not wiped out by the floods, are sending truckloads of much-needed hay to livestock producers and ranchers in Nebraska. These stories offer a glimmer of sunshine in the darkest hours of the 2019 floods. You might say that we're experiencing an unwelcome twist of March Madness along the Missouri River. Despite being mired in muck and mud, it's reassuring to see the full court press and gritty resilience of Midwesterners. Make no mistake, the catastrophic damages to private property, farmland, Main Street businesses, public utilities, and critical infrastructures, including wells, roads, bridges, and railways, have extended beyond the capability of local and state government. Aerial footage of our state make entire communities and farmsteads look like an island surrounded by an ocean. And you can see some of that here in this photo, taken just last week. You see here a small community along the Missouri River. It's a town by the name of Pacific Junction, located in the southwestern corner of the state in Mills County. Its entire population was forced to evacuate. As you can see from this photo, the rooftops of homes appear to be floating in the muddy waters of a monopoly board. So I ask my colleagues here in the Senate, and I ask Americans listening at home, put yourselves in the shoes of those evacuated from their homes. Imagine if this were your home, soaking in unsanitary water for days on end. Consider for a moment the damages to your furniture, clothes, appliances, and your most prized possessions. Think how much it would cost to replace those items. And now, add up the countless hours of hard work that it would take to clean up the mess and mud, muck, and mold once the water finally recedes. I have another photo here I want you to look at. Let's turn now to a photo near Pacific Junction. And I think I ought to thank a constituent and a friend by the name of Larry Winham of Glenwood, Iowa, for sharing these photos. Just think of the small businesses impacted by the floods. The photo here of a motel illustrates how flooding can wash away the livelihoods of business owners and their employees. This particular business will have zero occupancy indefinitely. Even if the roads were open, this business will need a floor-to-ceiling refurbishment to replace beds, linens, carpets, and towels, and most likely even significant plumbing and electrical work. I want to show you another photo of mainstream Hamburg, Iowa. This community was hard hit in 2011, and I was there in 2011, and it's worse now. And you can see it's underwater 2019. Now let's examine how the flooding has affected our farmers. As a lifelong farmer, I know exactly what farmers across my state are feeling at this time of the year. They get very antsy and keep constant watch on the weather, on soil temperatures, on planting conditions for their seed. They've ordered seed and fertilizer. These farmers are chomping at the bit to get started on field work. Now imagine the farmers along the Missouri River. Tens of thousands of acres of farmland underwater. These acres may never be ready for planting for sure this season. And now consider the farmers who were storing grain in the bends along the Missouri. Millions of bushels of flood-soaked grain have spilled into murky floodwaters. This picture says it all. This is grain that farmers were counting on to pay the bills to put this year's crop into the ground. This photo was shared courtesy of State Representative David Seek, whose legislative district is almost completely impacted by the flood damages. And I thank David for sharing. My state staff tells me some farmers in the flooded areas didn't get last fall's crop fully harvested, and of course that's destroyed. Since March the 12th, my staff has been crisscrossing scores of Iowa counties to visit affected communities and meet directly with Iowans. They're sharing the feedback from Iowans directly to me, and I'm making plans to visit affected areas very well as soon as can. I'm anxious to measure recovery and cleanup efforts to inform my decisions on tax and spending policies that are needed to help with recovery efforts going forward. As my speech and these photos suggest to all, and I hope will suggest to each of my colleagues here in the Senate, we have a long road to recovery from the floods of 2019. In fact, it could be worse. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a wake-up call last week. We are not yet out of the woods, not by a long shot. With more precipitation, snowmelt, saturated soils, frozen ground, massive ice jams, we're in store for significant spring flooding that may reach 200 million Americans. Today, I've talked largely about the extent of damages and the recovery efforts that are just getting started. It's important also to talk about flood mitigation. Breached, overtopped, or compromised levees span hundreds of miles on the Missouri River along the states of Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri. It took a long time for these communities to recover from flooding that took place 8 years ago. It's no wonder an awful lot of Iowans are feeling like they're way back to square one again. Iowans, especially those who live along the Missouri River, want and deserve answers. Southwest Iowa communities have raised grave concern about the unresponsive Corps of Engineers, specifically about the lack of communication, about not enough river dredging, water releases, and ordering the town of Hamburg back in 2011 to remove reinforcements of the now breached levee that left the town underwater. I too share the concerns that have been expressed to the Corps of Engineers. I've had a chance to talk to the Corps at headquarters in Omaha. For years, I've worked with several of my Midwestern colleagues along the Missouri River to make flood control the #1 priority of the Corps. It seems to me that misguided decisions and misplaced priorities have eclipsed common sense. So as I told you, I talked last week with the commander of the Corps in Omaha and shared my concerns about the lack of communication and coordination with local communities. Perhaps a good scrubbing of the master manual of the Corps of Engineers for the Missouri River may help clear wax out of bureaucratic ears that haven't gotten the message. The #1 priority of the Corps should be flood control. Flood control, period. I started out today by saying that I want to share a message from America's heartland. I'd like to close my remarks by sending a message to that American heartland. As Iowa's senior senator, I will stand with you every step of the way. My staff and I are working very closely with Iowa and Midwestern congressional delegations, the Trump administration, and state agencies to make sure that disaster relief programs are working effectively for homeowners, small businesses, farmers, and our local communities. And the best thing I can say to any federal agency and their employees, the Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and maybe many others, use a little common sense and cut out a lot of the red tape. But here's where it ends. When the going gets tough, Iowans get tougher. So hang tough, keep fighting, and know that help is on the way. I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.